So I would imagine you all saw the news about Unreal Engine. Pretty exciting stuff. Yay. Make sure that you come by and visit us at our booth. There's a lot of exciting stuff that we're going to be sharing later on in the week. And I really encourage you all to come by. And if you can, make sure that you come by on Wednesday. We have a couple of theater spaces that we're going to be sharing a lot of really interesting new things, and the Epic Games tech artists are going to be showing some fantastic new material that I really encourage you all to visit. Today's event is not so much a commercial event that we're not really going to be showing a lot of that stuff. We're going to be really focusing on the educational folks here and the material that I think is really relevant to you guys, because we have a massive booth and a tremendous effort going into those efforts. So we really wanted to take this opportunity to focus on material that would be beneficial to you all. So hopefully you've all had a chance to have a little bit of breakfast. There's still some yummy stuff out there. Make sure that you go out and enjoy that stuff. Just a little bit about what we're going to see today. Mark's going to kick us off today, co-founder of Epic Games, and he's going to tell you a little bit about some of our initiatives and some of the exciting things that we're doing. Celia Hoden is coming up. She's the director of UX. I think it's really valuable for you to hear about the efforts that we are making towards making the engine easier to teach and to learn. Documentation specialist Lauren Ridge will be coming up to talk about documentation efforts. Alan, technical artist and customer relations specialist, will be coming up to show you some of the really great ways to teach and learn Unreal, and the efforts that we're putting into making the engine and the material within it easier to work with. And then we've got really a fantastic panel of educators that are going to come up and really talk about how they've integrated Unreal Engine into their educational institutions. And I think it's part of our efforts really to bring recognition to educators that are making curriculum a big part of their institutions. And so I think it's a really great opportunity to bring folks up and share some of the success stories they're having in classrooms and within the program. So we're really excited about that, and I'll get a chance to introduce them all. And then afterwards, we're going to have about 20 minutes to bring some chairs together and have everyone chat a little bit. And I really encourage you all at that point to feel free to discuss with everyone your experiences and some of the things that you're experiencing in integrating UE4 into your environment. So, and if, in case you haven't, at the end, please come up and get a nice shirt. We've got a bunch of them in the back. So we really are excited about our academic partners, and we want to share with everyone. So without further ado, I want to introduce you all to Mark Rain, co-founder of Epic Games, and he's going to take over from here.
So I have a few slides. I'm going to try not to talk to the slides as best I can. But first of all, we want to welcome you here. This is the first time we've done something of this scale, and we're pretty excited about that. We hired Luis because we realized that we really need to make a more coordinated effort in the educational space. It's something that's always been important to us. We've always had Unreal Engine with every single game that we made back in the early days, back to the original Unreal. We always released an engine. It always came with the tools so that people could create mods. And a certain number of people in education have used it for many, many years through many, many different engines. And as you can see, finally with Unreal Engine 4, we've really opened it up to everybody. So here's just, at least I think, talk about what's going on. But what I want to talk about is why we made Unreal Engine free. And it started, we started by taking the business model we had before and kind of turning it on its head, where we came up with a very, very, very small monthly fee. It was $19 and a small royalty of 5%. And that's contrasting to the Unreal Development Kit, which was $99.25 years before and was only available in binary. And we've always wanted to release the source code. This was always really, really important to us, and we thought, we're never going to make serious inroads into education if we don't have source code. And so with Unreal Engine 4, we have this radical new model. We released full source code for the editor, the tools, the engine, pretty much everything. And it took off like a house on fire. I mean, as you can imagine, it just went nuts. And we were really, really excited, and people were building really incredible games. And I urge you to come by the booth, check out just what people have done in the last year since they've gotten their hands on Unreal Engine 4, and you're going to be shocked. The quality is just amazing. Of course, we still have the big, huge companies like Microsoft building their next Fable with Unreal, and we have Sony making games, and you've seen all the pretty much cornered the market on fighting games now. Don't ask me how that happened, but we do. And you see people making all kinds of different styles of games with Unreal, from everything from mobile, console, PC, VR demos. You really need to come check out our VR demos, even AR, all kinds of different applications. And so we were just really excited about the $19 thing. It went really well. And about halfway into the year from last GDC to now, we said, what could we do for educators to make it even easier for them? And so we decided, let's abolish the $19 for any education. Any student, we don't care, you don't have to be part of a big accredited organization. You don't have to be a university student. You could be a high school student, elementary school. It didn't matter what level. You could be at a community college. You could be at Harvard. We didn't care. We wanted to just make sure that you had access to the tools, and especially the source code of Unreal Engine 4. And obviously when we did that, I think I spoke to some of you already today, it excited a lot of people, and it really made a big change for us. And we thought, what if we could do that for everybody? And so now you see we've made it free for everyone. And I think making it free for everyone will also help education, because it will be used in a lot more applications. I mean, you'll hear people talking about, the royalties, but the royalties apply to games that you sell and to applications that you sell commercially. They don't apply to an architect who makes a walkthrough of your house. And the fact that you're paying that architect to make the walkthrough of your house, there's no royalties in that. It doesn't apply to a hospital who wants to build medical simulation and use it in their operations. It doesn't apply to filmmakers who want to actually make movies using the incredible tools that we have inside Unreal Engine, and so on and so forth. So we're really excited about all kinds of uses that'll be happening for it, and obviously very excited about education. So throughout today, you're going to hear a little bit about documentation, tutorials, Answer Hub, about our evangelist. You're going to hear about user interface. You're going to hear about people making titles in schools. So we really want to build awareness of that. In addition, you're going to hear that we want to hear from you. We want to know, what are you doing with Unreal? What's your school doing? What are you doing as teachers? And are you teaching Unreal? Are you using Unreal in teaching? We want to know about students that are doing real cool stuff, and we want to be able to help you build recognition for your programs that are based around Unreal, for your students that are doing outstanding things, and of course for your educators. In addition, we came up with this really great program we call Unreal Development Grants. And it's a bit of a stimulus program, but we really want to put a decent amount of this money into education. So the initial fund is $5 million, and we're doing allocations of between $5,000 and $50,000 per grant. We've already received, gosh, I'm guessing by now, a few hundred applications, and we really, I can't stress this enough, so I'm going to say really about 80 times, really want to encourage teachers and educators to apply for these grants. We need help. We can't teach everybody in the world how to use Unreal, and we can't teach everybody in the world how to do things that you can use Unreal for. So we really like to have curriculums and cool projects that we can highlight and just support just the really great and crazy uses that people are doing with Unreal, as well as the more mundane things, and especially research as well. If you're doing some really incredible research, we'd love it to be using Unreal. We'd love to get behind it. Unreal, I just want to give you a very fast sell job on Unreal Engine 4 in case you're not aware of it. They're going to show you some more cool stuff, but Unreal is a really phenomenal engine. There's nothing else like it. Nobody has anything like Blueprints. Blueprints is an incredible visual scripting system that allows non-programmers and programmers alike to just build incredible stuff. If you see some of the sample projects that come with Unreal Engine 4 that are built with Blueprints only, I think you're going to be completely amazed. This can be used, we talk about using Unreal, and I'll get to this in computer science courses, but now you could use an incredible graphics game engine with all the power that you've seen in the most incredible AAA games out there to do just about anything that requires graphics, and it's fairly simple and easy to lay out. So I encourage you to learn about Blueprints. We have some great tutorials, and they're getting better all the time. Of course, the base tool set for Unreal, the way you can go in and pose animations and do all kinds of really cool things for building environments, getting your lighting going, these are the best in the world. I mean, even though we have a $0, a way to license Unreal, we still have some very big companies paying lots of money so that they can, ship really incredible AAA games. The other big point of Unreal that I want to make is C++. So, and again, this is something that I believe of the commercial engines, we're the only ones to provide free and open access to our source code. And when I say open, it's not just you can use our source code, but if you're writing documentation, you're writing a book, and you want snippets of our source code to put in there, you're licensed for that. You don't have to come and ask us any special permissions. Now, of course, we don't want you to put all millions of lines of source code as a big giant printout, but we know that to educate people how to use this stuff, you need to be able to create materials, and you need to be able to have our source code in there, right? The beautiful thing about us releasing all the source code is it opens a door for so many different educational uses of Unreal. So again, you could use Unreal just to teach game development or just to teach computer science, but now you can go in and X-ray Unreal. Do you want to teach your students how to write a renderer? Great. Start by dissecting ours and then pull it out and bolt in your own. All the hooks are in there. We have licensees that do that all the time. They want a different rendering, a completely different rendering feel or look, or some specific feature to something they're doing that's different than something we're doing. They do that. You want to have your own physics simulation? You can pull the physics out and put in your own. Do you want to teach people, how we talk to file systems, or how we cache things, or how we manage memory? It's all there. It's the perfect roadmap for how to teach people how to build their own game engines, right? Not just how to dissect our own game engine. But it's also perfect for computer science courses. Do you want to show them what the best programmers in the world are doing? Well, here it is. It's right there, all in source code format for you. Do you want to, again, teach them how to build their own versions, and you can use Unreal as a test bed. You want to, now, totally outside of computer science, do you want to build weather simulations? Well, you have the world's best game engine, and with rendering engine, on which your weather simulations can now be bolted into. So all kinds of applications, weather, medical, scientific, DNA, all those sorts of things you could build because you have the full source code. And our little slogan that we had when we first gave out the source code was, we give you everything so you can do anything. And here's some of the cool stuff. I'll just run through these slides. I'm pretty much done, but I'll just run through some slides so you can see what some of the cool things that are already going in education. This is just the tiny tip of the needle. But people are doing some really cool stuff, and we expect to see a lot more. So that's it for me. I'm going to turn you back to Lewis. I've got to go for a little bit. I'm going to be back for the round table. So if you have any questions about EPIC and our support for education and the crazy things we've done since 1991, I'll be here and I'll be around to chat with you. Thank you, everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you. Next, we're going to have Director of UX, Leo.
Okay. So I'm very excited to be here. Thank you for coming. So I'm Celia. I'm Director of User Experience here at EPIC. So my background is in psychology. I've got a PhD in psychology, and I started in games like about 10 years ago. Time flies very fast. And I'm just going to talk to you a little bit about what is user experience. I'm pretty sure you've heard of it, so I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but I'm going to explain what we do at EPIC and how we try to make that better. So just a very quick definition of user experience. What is it like for the user to interact with the software, including how engaging the experiences are relative to the design intentions. And why is this important? This is coming from Don Norman, from the Design of Everyday Things. So he's a designer. And what he's explaining is whenever you design something, you have a specific mental model about what is it you want to design and the experience you want to offer. But you have to put that into a system with its specific constraints. And then the user who's going to use your software is only interacting with the system. And he's coming with his own mental model, with his own knowledge and background experience. And so you only have to rely on the system to convey the information clearly enough for the user to be able to use it on his own and have fun with it and make cool stuff with it. But it's pretty hard, right? Because we, being on the designer side, we're not necessarily understand or know or anticipate clearly what's going to happen on the user side. It's very hard to actually step back from our own perspective to adopt the user's perspective. So to accomplish good UX is actually very, very hard. Otherwise, I would be out of job if it was easy to do. But basically, what you want to do to have good user experience is, to me, it's like two big buckets. You need to have great usability and great flow. So I'm just going to talk very, very quickly about that, just to make sure we are on the same page. So the usability part, making software usable means to pay attention to human limits and perception, attention, and memory. So actually, usability guidelines come from human psychology and our understanding of the brain. Brain has a lot of limitations. It's hard for us to focus on many things. We cannot really multitask. The memory is not that, our memory is not that great. We're not computers. So we have to deal with this, and we don't actually perceive the reality. We transform the reality. And I don't know if you've seen the dress, the blue and black dress thing. This is I know it was very trendy, and it's very funny because it's really showing that perception is subjective. We're not perceiving the reality. We're just like analyzing the reality. And this is a challenge because my reality is not necessarily your reality, and so it makes usability difficult to achieve. So we're using heuristics to make that happen. There's a lot of heuristics out there. This is the 7 that actually I'm using the most. This is as well for games, but you want clear sense of feedback. Make sure that you can always understand what's going on and what you can do, and have feedback on what you did, clarity, all these things. I'm not going to describe that here. It's a bit too long, but this is the guideline we're using to evaluate the usability of our products. And the second part is flow. So this one is more fuzzy, and it's I like to use that because in games a lot of people talk about fun, and it's very difficult to define, and it's not really applying for software. It's hard to say, well, I'm having fun using a software. So I prefer to talk about flow, and the flow is coming from that psychologist called Mihai Csikszentmihalyi. And to him, it was researching about happiness, and he found out that people that are most happier are actually people who experience flow, which is the optimal experience whereby a person's body or mind is stretched to its limit in a voluntary effort to accomplish something difficult and worthwhile. It means, like, for example, if you try to learn the guitar, it's going to be difficult to learn that thing, but it's going to be worthwhile because if you're making progress, you're going to feel better about it, feel good about your progress. And this applies completely on software, because when you want to use software, you want to create something. And if you actually understand the software, you know that you can really do whatever you want to do with that software. You are in that state of flow when there's, you don't even think about eating anymore. You're totally into your task and you do that great stuff. And this is really what we want to accomplish, and this is really difficult. So it's all about how we perceive the pacing, and the pacing it's a big part of the learning curve. How people can actually learn about using the software. It has to be not too difficult, and you have to feel that progression when you use the software. It's all about motivation and emotion. Again, I'm not going to talk too much about that. Although I'd love to talk about these things, but I know that Lewis doesn't want to talk too much. But this is really important for great UX. And We have that curse of knowledge. You as an educator, us as developers, as designers, we know that product way better. We know, that what we're producing, what we're creating, so well that someone, when you're trying to explain that to someone who doesn't have that knowledge, it's very difficult. It's just like when you're going to a foreign country and you ask for your bearings. The person is going to explain to you, well, it's very clear, you're going to turn the third on the left, and then you turn right, and blah, blah, blah. And from your perspective, you're like, sure, and maybe you remember the first one, and then you lost it, and you have to ask again for the path. So we have that curse of knowledge, and it's very difficult to understand how somebody new to the software is really experiencing it. So to do that, we have a secret weapon. We have a lab. So this is a very cool lab. This is what we do when we have people playing games, so they're really separated. But we're also using the lab, of course, to test UE4 and to see where the friction points are, so we can actually make that better. So what we did is we had sessions, what we call the UX game jam sessions. So we invited teams into that lab, so we rearranged everything so it looked like, they could talk together. So there were small teams, indie teams, and it was the first time for them to use UE4. And we asked them to start a new game using UE4. And they did that with us watching, not interfering at any times, but we could just see what was going on and where the friction points, what was difficult for them to understand, what was more easy to understand, so we can actually adjust the UE4 and make progress in the documentation, in the UI, and a lot of stuff. So some of the things that we found out, there was a lot of stuff, people had, new people to UE4 had a hard time with the vocabulary, to understand the vocabulary, the specific vocabulary to UE4. So this is one of the things that we try to improve with documentations. Lauren's going to talk about that. And there were a few stuff that we found out here. One of the other stuff is that people had difficulties to understand what blueprints are and when to use it. So I'm just going to take a couple examples here. Of course, there's a lot of examples. But here what we did when we saw people not really understanding what blueprint is, but to us, that word means a lot. But when we use UE4 for the first time, blueprint do not necessarily convey that mental model about what you can do with blueprints. So when we saw that, we actually tried to make that much clearer with our tooltips and the UI directly to explain what blueprint is and what you can do with it. Another example is that we figured out that people, when they're creating blueprint and they had to pick a parent class, they were not sure which parent class to use and for what purpose. So what we did is we tried to explain that way better when you have to pick a parent class, and always have it. You have a little question mark that you can click on that goes directly to the documentation. So we tried to make that a way easier to reduce all the friction points where we saw them, to improve the user experience and to make for them to learn to use UE4 way better and with less problems. So this is it for my part. If you as educators, it's really cool for us to talk to you, because since you teach UE4, I'm sure you see the same friction points over and over again. And if you want to, just talk with us and tell us what you see, so we can actually help in these areas. There's a good chance that we already spotted these problems, but you never know, and it's always good to know also how many times one problem is occurring, so we can prioritize our actions here. So this is about it. I think I said it all. Don't hesitate to reach out to us if you have any questions or if any else thing that again is occurring over and over again. And I would like to take this opportunity to thank all the people who participated into the UX research at EPIC, because this was really, really important to us to see where the friction points to them. So that was really insightful. All right, thank you. And I think Lauren is going to tell you all about that and see all the cool stuff that we did.
All right, round of applause. I can jump now. Yay. So, I'm Lauren. I work at Epic, and a little bit of background on myself. I'm just one part of a team of technical writers, technical artists, and programmers who are working to create different types of documentation, learning resources. The other thing is not just creating them, but how to make them have the most impact for users, because we realize that not one size fits all. People are going to learn best different ways, and we're always trying to work to improve the current resources we have to make them have the most use for people trying to learn UE4. So this is one example of one of our written documentation pages. This one is actually aimed at getting people from a blank project to something achieved quickly right away. So, and then we kick them off to sort of what you could do next. So after you've built this little room with the chairs and the table, you know, maybe you want to make the scene nighttime instead, and how you would adjust the level that way. But we have, I think, more than 1,700 current written documentation pages, and so part of the real concern is how do we make those more visible, more searchable, and make people able to find what they need. So one of the things we've just rolled out this past weekend is a sidebar on the documentation. So for this, you can actually see the quick start guide. It falls under getting started. You see all your steps, and you see what you might want to look at next, including that terminology page that arose out of UX feedback from the game jams. We also have Google search embedded in the documentation. So if you have a question that you want to ask right away, you can jump in and search. Not just on the home page, which this is the search bar from the home page, but on the top right corner of every page, there's a search that you just jump right in and use Google to find what you need in the documentation. We've also added different search terms like quick start, how to, and some of the key terminology so that you can see what we've got on those topics, which we feel are popular jumping off points. In addition to the written documentation, we've also got video tutorials. And we've got, I think, over 200 videos now, more than 30 hours of content. And they're all on YouTube, so you can go search, embed them in your own pages. We'd love them to get shared around and followed. The other thing is we realized that with so much content, it's hard to know this playlist covers this topic I'm interested in. So we've actually also embedded the videos on the documentation sorted by category. So you can see, okay, I'm interested in animation. There's 2 different series that I might want to get started with to learn more about that. And finally, one of the things that we're able to offer is downloadable samples. So there's tons of these right now, I think 25 or so. We're always adding more. And they range from really simplistic, standalone examples of what is the bare essentials that you need to, say, create a brick material or create a metallic material. So you can see, all right, if I want to achieve this same goal, I need to at least have these steps. To slightly more involved or interconnected examples, like this one that's going to be released really soon, that's a blueprint networking example. So 2 players can actually connect either over a local network or over the internet and play against each other. And so this sample actually shows you how to set up that networked play.
This is blueprint?
This is all in blueprints, yes. It's actually showing off new features that just made it into 4.7. So this project was meant to go along, and it will be out really soon. And Alan did amazing art on it, so. So it basically shows you, okay, if I want to do a blueprint multiplayer game, what functions do I need to call? How do I need to set it up in blueprints? They also have a wide variety of implementations and art styles. So this is one of our examples that's actually done mostly in C++. So if you're interested in how to do AI or different types of setup in code, you could open up this sample and pull it apart, add comments, add more functions, and see what you can build out of it. And it's also got a really futuristic art style. We've also got this, which is a much more cartoony art style, and if it was something that you wanted to figure out how to achieve in your own project or your class that you wanted to go over different rendering techniques, you could examine this project and see how we would do it here at Epic.
Go ahead.
I loaded this one up, and it's nice. It has a lot of commenting in the blueprint, so I was able to mess with the line width and stuff like that.
Yeah, we're always trying to make sure they're well commented, and also we do encourage you to take them apart and use them in your projects. In fact, the game I'm playing right now is built on Unreal Stick Figure 2D, which is another piece of sample project. So can't wait to see what everybody does with it. We've seen some really interesting things. And we realize that not everybody might find all of those different types of documentation applicable on their own, either by learning preferences or use cases. So we're working to combine different types of documentation for each topic, so they've got really a wide area of accessibility. So an initiative we've just kicked off is actually transcribing all of our videos, so that if you're not able to listen along for whatever reason, or you're somebody who just prefers to Control F and jump to that part of the tutorial that you want to get started on, those will be available and accessible. So this is something we're actively working on to get out to everybody to have accessible. Another thing is, so this is another sample project, the matinee fight scene. And we realized that we say, okay, jump into this project, we do comment things, we make sure that it's easy to find, but sometimes it's nice to have a little bit of a map. So we've written this tutorial over not just how the scene was constructed, but how you could remix the tracks and make your own. So yes, you can jump in, dive in, figure out what's going on in there, but we've also written an accompanying tutorial, which is available online. And finally, we started doing these live training streams where someone from Epic sits down for an hour on Twitch and explains how they extended the editor, made procedural rooms, different specialized features, and then we take questions from the community, either beforehand or also while people are watching the stream. The streams are also recorded and uploaded to YouTube later, so if you're not able to tune in on Tuesdays, you can watch whenever. Also, those projects then get packaged up and released through the Learn tab as well. So what is the Learn tab? It is sort of the centralized hub and the launcher for all these learning resources. And Alan is going to go into this in a lot more detail right after this, but I kind of wanted to give a sneak preview, so that this is the sort of one-stop shop to at least get started looking for documentation. And it has the same Google search at the top. And this is the part where I kind of wish I put some elevator music in the game, although now that I have no sound, you wouldn't know. So, okay. So I've covered a lot of the traditional resources, right? Written tutorials, videos, and projects. But what we're really working with developers is how to put help directly in the editor. So while you're trying to learn how to use a tool, or while you're actually just teaching the class, you've got help available right there with where you are. You don't have to leave the editor. We actually have a tutorial system embedded in the editor. So whether you're in the tutorial browser, which is that up in the top left, the welcome to the editor, basics, blueprints, the topics, or you just opened up a new asset, you opened up a blueprint or a particle system, and there's an alert in the corner saying, hey, there's a tutorial, check this out. You can click on that, start the tutorial, and you'll get these little windows with syntax highlighting or UI highlighting, like the apply button there, and small action items or small pieces of descriptive text telling you what you can do next or what you might use that tool for. And we're always adding more of these. In fact, for 4.7, I think we have them in a lot of the templates, and also for some of the new workflows that we put in 4.7. So I know that we talked about tooltip, or Celia showed an example of a tooltip, and if you mouse around the editor, you can definitely see little strings of text saying, hey, this is what this property is, or this is what this button does. But sometimes you might want to know why you want to use it, or how it really impacts your scene. And that's why we've started adding these rich tooltips. They're enriched with pictures, links to more documentation, and to pull them up, all you have to do is hold down Control and Alt, or Command and Alt if you're on a Mac, and start mousing around. You'll start getting these enriched tooltips throughout the editor. Oh, I don't have my little camera, but we've got documentation actors. These are throughout a lot of our sample content. So content examples has one, have them by different stands so that you see, all right, I want to figure out how this animation was done. Well, you can click on the documentation actor, click the button, it'll take you right to a page in the documentation that explains how that stand was constructed and why the animation was set up that way. We've also got them in a couple of our templates, so you can go to a tutorial or a video that's related. So that's a lot of the in-editor help, but it's really just kind of the beginning. We've got the same search in the top right corner. Not only does it search the documentation videos, same as the other searches I've talked about so far, but this one also searches the in-editor tutorials. So say you're looking for help on materials, you can type that in, click the link, and it'll pop up the tutorial and get you started making your first material. This is the also something that came out of the UX feedback, the documentation anchors. So again, there is a difficult time for people to figure out, do I want an actor? Do I want to make a pond? What do I do with these things I might not be too familiar with the terms for? And so these question marks on the right side are links to more documentation. So if you keep an eye out for those throughout the editor and click on them, they'll take you right to the page that we think will help you most in that area. And finally, we've got help throughout tons of context menus. This one is on a material node, but you can also right-click on assets, blueprint nodes, different, basically, if you're curious about something and want to figure out what it does, just right-click on it. And there's often a view documentation link that will take you to what we think will be the most helpful resource for that thing. But the really cool part about all this in editor help, in my opinion, is that we actually package the tools for this inside the editor, so anybody can use it. If you want to customize the editor to the class you're teaching, you can put in your own rich tooltips. You can put in your own in-editor tutorials. You can also make a level, like what I've got here, where you have your own documentation actors linking to the resources for your class. So we're always trying to improve those tools, but also make sure other people who want to teach the engine have them, because that way everybody can have stronger teaching tools at their hands. So, yay! I hope I've managed to convey a lot of not only the depth of resources we have, but how we're working to improve their delivery, the tools that you could use that are packaged in the editor to make your own customized editor and projects for teaching. And thank you guys for listening.
Okay, so I am Alan Noon. I'm one of the developer relations tech artists with Epic. There's a few of us, 3 or 4 now. And I'm going to largely reiterate a lot of what Lauren said, but I'll show you directly how to access these different materials and resources from within the editor, and particularly from the launcher, which I'll bring up now. So the launcher really is the portal into the world of Unreal. And we've got a few different tabs. I'm going to just quickly walk through the UI, and we'll get back to the Learn tab, which is the main area of focus. But very quickly, across the top here, we have the different applications that are installed. We're concerned with Unreal Engine, of course. And down the Unreal Engine tab here, we have our main tab subsections. But I'm going to jump down to the bottom and talk about some of these resources. So, hold on. We have to get our Wi-Fi back here. Hold on a minute. I knew I was forgetting something. All of our documentation is online. Okay. Bear with me for a moment. Okay, I think we're live. There we go. Okay, so down at the bottom here, we have several different tabs. I'm going to start actually with Forms tab, so let's go ahead and click that. I'm running off a cell phone, so a little bit slow. But okay, so here we have our forum. We have a great online community here. There are a number of different subsections for you to check out. We have official channels for announcements from Epic and so forth, announcements about our marketplace and events that are going on. And then these subsections here are where I would direct your students to. So we have very focused sub-forums on, for example, Blueprint. So everything that you'd want to know about Blueprint or discuss about Blueprint is here. You can ask questions, pose examples, that sort of thing. I would like to show off, in particular, I like the work in progress section. I roll through there like every other day. There's tons of inspirational material. You see what people are doing out there. And again, lots of great discussion, people showing off what they're doing. All right, so Answer Hub is our community-driven answer portal. So while I do say that it is community-driven, you will see Epic people on here from time to time jumping in and answering questions. But so let's say, just by way of example here, I'm having an issue with distance field ambient occlusion. So I'm just going to say DFAO, do a search, and there we go. Now all of the questions that have been posed about distance field ambient occlusion are going to come up. You can see that the green ones here have been answered. There's a couple maybe not so much, but you can jump in. Let's try to find one with maybe, here we go, a couple of different responses. But you'll see the initial question here, and then what I really like about this is you can see the back and forth between other developers that are out there in the community. So people that are actually using the tools and are in the trenches are responding, posing solutions, contributing, and really it is a great community. So, and as I mentioned, you will see some answers from Epic people, but it is largely a community-driven forum. All right. So one of the things that really changed with UE4 was not only the engine and the pricing model, but actually the mentality within the company. And part of that was there was a new degree of openness and transparency. And as such, we provide the roadmap for development of the editor here, which is freely browsable. We're using Trello. So you can go on here and you can see all the major categories that we're working on, different features and what have you. You can take a look at Cascade. This is our new particle editor, for example. And we can see what Katie McGovern is up to and basically what's happening here at Niagara. Okay, we see here this is the prototype for the new node-based editor. So I would encourage your students to get involved with this, and if there are any particular features that they are interested in or need help with or want to see developed more quickly, you can actually vote on these cards as well. And so staff at Epic is constantly reviewing this information and using that to help steer us and our development efforts as we go forward. All right, I'll quickly mention the social channels down here at the bottom, particularly Twitch. So as Lauren mentioned, we have Twitch streams that happen 3 times a week. Let's see, I always have to make notes to remember when they actually occur. So we have the engine stream, which is just basically information related, news related to the engine and development itself. We have a community spotlight where we're showing off things that are going on in the community, of course. Those happen on Thursday. And then on Tuesdays are more technical streams. We have our support stream where the community can get on the chat and ask questions live, or actually ahead of time post questions on the forums. And then we have our training streams, which are more focused on a particular subject. So for example, this coming Tuesday, I'm going to be speaking about that gunslinger game that you saw earlier. We'll show how we actually set up the networking and did the gameplay and the graphics and all that stuff. So those are the streams there. And again, all these are uploaded to our YouTube channel, so you can go ahead and peruse those and search at your leisure. All right, so let's move over to, really quickly, news. Everything here related to Epic and the engine comes through the news feed here. So you see our big announcement. If you love something, set it free, for example. Recaps of the Twitch streams that I just mentioned, so on and so forth. And then let's jump down to the marketplace. This is our online storefront. So I mentioned this because it might be relevant to your students. Now, we understand that content, especially high quality content, can take a long time to create. So some of your students may get value out of this. For relatively affordable prices, they can purchase packs of content that they can then inject into their projects to get up and running. So if they were making a top-down strategy game, instead of going and having to make this castle, you could just go ahead and purchase that through your accounts. All right. And the library. So up here, we're going to see all the different versions of the engine that are installed. You could have side-by-side versions if that's something that you require. Every time there's an update to an engine version, you'll see a red note here and also on the actual tab title as well. And then we have a list of all the content that is actually on this machine here. So these are all the different projects. You see the little tags telling you which version of the engine they're actually running off of. And it's very easy to convert from one or the other. As you open up a project that has not been opened on the most current version of the engine installed, you'll be asked asked to modify, update it in one of several different ways. You can actually replace or do a side-by-side upgrade. Okay, and then the vault itself here is a list of all the content that's on the machine, but not necessarily in a project that you can inject in. So again, so I use the example of the top-down dungeon that we got off the marketplace. So this is something that you just go ahead and add to any project to get us up and running. All right. So let's go back to the Learn tab. So again, search bar is powered by Google, so it's rather clever. So let's say I've been working in an engine and I'm used to doing raycasts. So let's go ahead and I need to know how to do that in Unreal. So we'll do a search. Up comes the online documentation, and we see that we actually call them traces in Unreal. And here's all the information we need to know. Here's a single line trace. Shows us the blueprint network node set up here to go ahead and execute this directly. All right, so we have some buttons here. Again, direct links right to the documentation. Again, with the search bar that Lauren mentioned, we have the keywords down here, popular topics, so you can jump right to it. And then we've also broken down the documentation into these major groups. So if you're interested in getting started, click this button, and it'll take you to the appropriate set of pages. Okay, I can let you discover this. Actually, I do want to point out samples and tutorials. We're going to spend some time in there in a moment. But as Laura mentioned, we ship with a wide variety of different sample projects that you can go and dissect and use in your own. And along with those actual projects themselves, you can follow along with the documentation that we have here. All right. Video tutorials, again, I mentioned that previously, but we have our categorized list. And all of this is also up on YouTube as well, along with all the other content that I mentioned before, Twitch streams, support streams, so on and so forth. Okay, and the community wiki. So again, another obviously community-driven initiative here, but basically this is a repository for all sorts of content that maybe doesn't fit into the other sections of the documentation. So this is really a treasure trove of info here. So if there's a particular effect that you're looking for, let's go ahead and look at the tutorials here. I want to find, here we go, here's all of our categories. We do have a subcategory here for epic created content within, but let's say we want to look for something on cameras. Okay. And here we go, this is what I was looking for. Creating a shared camera in a multiplayer game. So this is, again, contributed by somebody out there in the world using Unreal. So we've got some nice diagrams, documentation there. Anybody can contribute to this. But there's all sorts of like really hyper-specific features and functionality that you can locate in here. Great tool. All right, so we have a series of links here that rotate out on a regular basis, semi-regular basis, right? Highlighting different learning materials. For example, we have a brand new document here we'd like to show off. So maybe that'll get some of your students headed down the right path. Okay, so let's jump back to features and samples. So I really want to show this. So these are the projects that Lauren mentioned that you can download and dissect. Here's the matinee example. Lots of great stuff in here. Again, you can get in there, figure out how we do things at Epic. You can actually pull these apart and pull portions of them into your own projects for use. I'll show you how to do that in a moment. But first, I'm going to go ahead and jump into content examples. I would say, in my opinion, if you're going to walk away from my little presentation here, the one thing you should remember is content examples. I'm going to go ahead and launch that. Basically, every major feature or section of the engine has an associated level within the content examples. It's a pretty big project, as you might might imagine. Okay. So here we are. This is the new UI layout for 4.7, brand new. If you haven't seen it here, we've made some workflow improvements thanks to our UX work. So this is the opening level here. A couple of things I want to point out right away. So you see this little medallion here. This is that documentation actor that was previously mentioned. If you go ahead and select that, you'll see over here in the details panel, we have a button. You can click that, and it'll jump you right to the relevant piece of information. So this particular actor is just basically giving us an overview of how to use this sample. So you'll see those throughout. And now is probably a good time to point out we have this small icon up here. It looks like a graduation cap. We'll go ahead and press that. Again, these are the online tutorial, the live in-editor tutorials. So I'm going to go ahead and open up. Let's take a look at a couple of different features here. Let's take a look at, well, this is probably a good time to segue into some of the workflow that we have in UE4 that will help out your students in your classes. So I'm going to look at physical animation here. So let's say I'm a member of a team, a student team, and my animator on the team is having an issue. We're making a first-person shooter, and we want the character, every time he's hit, to perform some sort of hit reaction. Now, we don't want to author all that different content, so we've decided that we're going to use Ragdoll. And for whatever reason, our animator is having a little bit of trouble figuring out how to actually implement that. So I'm going to go in here, and if I hit play, you see that these are actual game levels that they can walk around. We have these kiosks, and we've got some documentation here. Basically, what we're saying is as we're blending this value across this slider, the different bones that are named here are going to be affected by this effect. So I'll just drag it all the way up. See, we've gone ragdoll there. This guy's got sort of a limp arm. His leg is kind of having some issues there. All right. And over here, so this looks a little bit more like what we want to do. So as I'm clicking the mouse, we're actually registering hits. And if you notice, when I click and hit a particular piece of the body there, only that part is reacting. So that looks like exactly what we want in our game. So I'm going to go ahead and just escape out. And I'm going to select that actor. Now, all of the content is, I'll say, woven together or interlinked. So I can go ahead and right-click here, and I can either find it in the content browser, which over here in the asset pane is going to bring up the actual asset in the content browser, or I can directly right-click and say, edit this actor. So here we go. This is the actual node network that makes this all happen. So basically, when we have a hit, we're determining that we want to make sure that we're not having this ragdoll effect the root node, otherwise the character will just completely flop over, right? So we just want this to happen on further down the bone chain. So we make sure that we're not being hit already, and we're getting that bone name. And then we're going to blend. We're going to blend from ragdoll into the actual animation that we're playing, and we're going to do that over time using a timeline. And we're going to set the actual physics simulation here on the skeletal mesh to make that all work. So, okay, we don't have to go into all of this, but so here it is. This is what we're looking for. So while this isn't really any sort of big secret, I don't think a lot of people know about it, and it's kind of a cool tip. But we'll just go ahead and I'm going to copy all of that. So then I'm going to go to, let's just say I have my email client, and I'm going to type up an email to my animator. Okay, hey, I found a solution to our problem. Why don't you just go ahead and use this? So now I'm pasting into the document. So this is basically a text representation of that node network. Animator takes a look at it. Oh, hey, that's awesome. That's exactly what I need. I'm going to copy that. Let's jump back into Unreal, and I'm going to go ahead and let's just make a new character here. So there's a little more to the setup than this, but just by way of example. So let's pretend this is our character that we're working with. Here's our event graph. Animator comes in, Control V, and the entire network is pasted in. So it's a great way to sort of share nodes, copy and paste information, node networks back and forth. It also works on materials as well. So you've seen the node network, the graph editor for the material system works there. So like I said, kind of a fun thing. useful tip there. All right, so other ways to get information in and out of Unreal, different projects, and share. Let's talk about migrating content. So I'm going to open up the effects level. All right, I like this one, nice and shiny. And one of my favorites is down here. Got the vector field effect here. That looks pretty awesome. Let's say that's something that we want to use in our game. So I'm just going to go ahead and we're going to find that in the browser. And I'm going to go ahead and look for my asset actions and migrate content. All right, so we don't need to save that. All right, so what this does is actually going to go through the project and find all the interconnected or related or referenced assets that make up this particular effect. So say, okay, yep, we want all that. And now I'm going to go ahead and find my project. And we'll want to stick that into the content. Okay, so there we see our little note, content migration completed. All right, so let's go over to our project here. Just a moment. Okay, don't have to worry about that for now. So now if we go into the asset pane here, we can see our original folder structure. Here's our effects, particle systems, and there's our vector file. So we can just go ahead and drop that right into the scene. And there you have it. So again, the content examples, a great resource. You can go ahead and migrate content in and out of those, take them apart, dissect them. The other thing I wanted to show, so this is fairly new, I believe 4.7, is the actual adding of content from one project to another. So we have this concept of project templates as well. Again, this is another thing that I think your students will get a lot of mileage out of, is with Unreal, when we're starting a new project, there we are. We have all of these pre-built templates. So if you wanted to build a first-person shooter, you can start with this particular template. We also duplicate these in C++ if you wanted the code version. Being an art guy, I'll stick with Blueprint. But yeah, third-person, vehicle, top-down, whatever, we have these templates that you can use to get off and running. So what we're seeing here is the actual third-person template. Comes with all of the basic controls set up for us. And so let's go ahead and, now let's say we wanted to have a game where we're running around in third person, but we want to switch over to a top-down shooter. We're going to get into a vehicle, for example. So brand new to 4.7, we can go ahead and add a feature or content pack. Brings up our template browser. And we'll do twin stick shooter. We're going to go ahead and add that to the project. Now you saw that pop right in. I can add as many of these as I like, but we'll keep it simple. And I'm going to take our little spaceship here and just drag that into the world. There we go. And I have to do a little bit of wiring, so let's go into the level blueprint. And I'm going to get our twin stick pawn and drag that right in. Wire that to there. And wire that to there. Okay, so basically all I'm really doing here is using the / key to flip-flop between the two different pawns. Let's kill that. Okay. So there we are, we're running around, we see our spaceship. And I hit the tilde key, or the backspace keys, and now I am actually doing the first-person shooter, swap back and forth. So again, another example of bringing content in and out of a particular project. All right. I think those are the major points that I wanted to cover. So along the same lines, not only can you bring in the blueprint materials like I have, but you can also bring in C++ code. So Lauren, if you'd like to come up, I think this is a good time for you to show that.
So you can have basically actors built on blueprints and actors built on C++ all in the same project. In fact, you can even do a little bit of C++ and then add blueprints on top of that. but let me go ahead and pull up an example of how to iterate in C++ right inside the editor. So, got this rocket ship here, and so let me just play and test out what I've currently got. This rocket is actually just in C++. If I hit B, the rocket fires off, and that's pretty cool, but I actually might want a countdown for that. So you can select the rocket right in the world, and actually, let me just go ahead and look at some of the properties really quick. You've got the mesh that sets up the rocket. You've got the particles for the fire and the smoke that are there when the rocket shoots off. And those are actually just all exposed parameters, C++ properties with certain keywords attached to them so that you can edit them directly here in the editor, and it's easier to, say, assign a different particle system if I wanted to change how the fire looked, that kind of thing. And then right here I can actually open the header file that made up this rocket. So you can see, here's the thrusted flames, the smoke, the rocket mesh, all of that set up directly for me to edit right in the editor. So while I was testing the rocket, I actually went ahead and coded a function that will count down to. And it will fire if I just uncomment this variable and save it. So basically, will it also count down before it takes off? And I've just decided to say yes. And I'll switch back to the editor because you can actually compile directly in the editor and see your code changes once you've saved them. So I'm just going to go ahead and do that. And this is hot reload. You can compile either in Visual Studio or Xcode or in the editor and see your changes right away. So if I go ahead and hit play again and fire it off, now it's got a countdown. So obviously the time to take the function, to write the function would be there, but you can add new classes, you can change how the class is constructed, you can change the properties, write in code, compile, and see them reflected right there without needing to restart the editor. And so that's just one of the really cool things about how it's become easier to work with C++ and iterate and see your changes right away if you were to be working with C++ for your course.
Do you have access to the Visual Studio debugging tools when you're working with it?
Yes, you can. If I were to run it that way, I would run debug game, which is just a different way you compile the project in Visual Studio. But then you get the symbols, you get all of that, and you can yeah. Mm-hmm. So I was actually using that last night. I couldn't error in my rocket ship. But so you can debug and see that as well while you're running if you basically compile from Visual Studio and launch that way. Yeah. And even with this, I could then, let me go find it in the content browser. Again, you can see code classes down here in the content browser. So if I wanted to make a new C++ class, I could actually do it right here, make a new character. Here we've got a documentation actor again if I wanted to figure out if a character is really what I wanted to go with. And name it, create the class, and you could create a class and it would recompile and reload it right there so you could get started with your new character. So there's a lot of new workflow changes for working with code, but hopefully to make it as simple as possible to iterate quickly, see your changes right away, and then see how that affects your game or your project. And with that, I'll hand it back to Alan.
Okay, so as I mentioned, that's largely what I wanted to cover today. Hopefully you got a few nuggets out of that, but I'll just finish up by saying please come by the booth. We have a bunch of more in-depth tutorial sessions. We have a live theater where we'll be giving demos, and the rest of the DevRel tech artists will be on the floor at the pods showing off different features and functionality in 4.7. So if you have any questions, what have you, please feel free to come on by. So thank you.
Fantastic. So we're going to really now start having some presentations from our educators. So I hope you're enjoying it so far. I'm sure there's still some food out there in the back, some water in the back for those of you who are getting a little thirsty. But what I'd like to do now is bring up James Butcher from Stanford University to share some presentations from an educational institution. Sir?
Hi. I'm James Butcher from Staffordshire University. I'm a senior lecturer at the university. Really, I want to talk to you today about what we do on our undergraduate and postgraduate awards. First thing, I'd like to start off by showing you a bit of a show reel that we've got together for the work that our students have completed over the last 12 weeks. So, is there audio for this? Sorry. Yeah, I'll move the mic. Awesome. Well, we're good. Yeah, hopefully. Okay, awesome. Okay, so cheers. So yeah, that's kind of a little bit of a teaser trailer of the kind of stuff that our students are doing at the moment. Now that's a combination of what our students are doing for final year undergraduate portfolio projects, but also for their collaborative games development modules that they're doing between the second and third years. So I'll just quickly talk you through the stuff that we're up to at the moment. So really, we've been using Unreal Engine now for a very long time at the university. We've got 15 staff on site that teach on both our undergraduate and postgraduate awards. And a bit from where we are really. Okay, so we're from the Midlands in the UK. Staffordshire's smack bang in the middle of the country. We've been voted as one of the Develop 100 to watch this year, as well as we won the TIGRA Award for Best Educational Initiative. But I found out this morning as well, we've also been shortlisted for the Guardian Business Awards as well for our work on the Epic Games Centre. Which leads me nicely into that really. So we've been working with Epic now very closely now for pretty about 2 years. This came as a result of us starting to do some close work with Mike Gamble, the European Territory Manager for Epic. He's now a visiting professor at our university. He comes in and he does a lot of work with talking to our students, having a chat to them about what their games are like. So for example, some of those games that you saw in that trailer there, he comes in and gives feedback to our students. I'll talk a little bit more about that later on. We use the Epic Games Centre as kind of a centre of excellence for European Unreal Engine training and education. And it's also used by Epic for Unreal Engine events when there's something that they'd like to do, which is really cool. So it's a 75-seat game development centre, which comes with a full TV studio, which is capable of doing live streams, things like Twitch and YouTube, and also has a 120-seat lecture theatre as well, which is all kind of within a very short distance of each other, so it allows us to run some really interesting events there. So we started using Unreal Engine 4 at launch this year. So when I say that the students have been working on that stuff for 12 weeks, that's 12 weeks of this academic year. So when U4 launched, we pretty much all of our staff didn't have holidays, so everybody stayed in and made sure that they produced all the educational content for this coming academic year. We have specialists in pretty much every field, so art, animation, blueprint programming, and also designers. So we have kind of multiple learning paths at the moment, which we've split this down into art, animation, design, and kind of tools. Now the tools section of our training and learning also underpins all of the other areas. So as our students come in the first year, they're taught UB4 from day one. Every one of our awards uses Unreal Engine 4 completely now, so we're completely underpinned by UB. And it's really cool, it's working out really well. It means that our artists can use it for rendering things for their presentations, for their portfolios. It means that our animation students can use it for producing their animation show reels and rendering that work out and get some hands-on experience with using things like Persona and linking that back into Blueprint. And it means that our designers can do rapid prototypes with Blueprint to create games such as the ones that you saw in that trailer a moment ago. So there's some really cool stuff happening with regards to how we're trying to structure the learning of the university to make sure that students are getting the most out of the engine and getting the most out of it when they progress on from the university into hopefully to work. So collaborative development is something that we've been doing now for, this is the second year that we've run it in the format that it's in at the moment, which is that we have our second and third years working in games development teams really, so teams of around about 20 students, and they work on a game over a 24-week period, and at the end of that we review that constantly throughout the period that they're developing it, and then they can iterate on that and continue or release that to the public if they want to. So this is the first year that it's run properly in this form with UB4, so they're about halfway through development with those few games that you've seen in that trailer. We also try and bring in as many industry speakers as possible to come and feedback to our students on both how the games are looking with regards to gameplay and whether or not they're worth their salt in that regard, but also we like to try and get an element of feedback for whether or not they're commercially viable. So if students intend to go away and do work with things like trying to set up their own studios or trying to make it on their own, then they also have that kind of element of experience as well. We recently took hold of an 8-camera T40 Vicon motion capture suite. That's linked into our animation module. So all of our students, when they're working with motion capture, are also doing that with an end target using that inside of Unreal Engine 4. And it's really cool. We've had some really interesting things come out of it. So, for example, we had some break dancers come in and use the facilities as well as ballet dancers, and we had some really interesting capture sheets with that was really dynamic and something that was a little bit different than the usual stuff that our students wanted to produce at the time. So it's been really cool in that regard. We're actually looking to expand on that as well as a commercial business within our faculty, so that we can start to provide those facilities in downtime to smaller indie studios around Europe. So what are our successes with UB4 at the moment? We're successfully integrated into all modules. The vast majority of all of our final year students now are using UB4 for final portfolio pieces, ready for them to seek employment. And all of our game art students are using it to render their work because they love it. They've all had a great time using it, and they're producing some really nice work now with it. Some of the challenges that we're facing at the moment with regards to our teaching and learning is that we produce a huge quantity of written and video tutorials, and we have to try and keep this stuff up to date with the constant evolution of UB4. So we're looking at solutions at the moment for different ways for presenting our written and video content, and looking at new ways of modularising that so that we can deliver that more effectively without soaking up man hours of reproducing content as new features are released or updated. So the other challenge that we're having at the moment is really trying to produce adequate content that doesn't only cover kind of the process of how to use a feature within the engine, but also how to make it look awesome so that the students get the best visual impact out of their work. And this leads on to us without kind of having an investigation into how to modularise our learning material throughout all of our awards. So whether that's on-site distance and also some exploratory work that we're doing at the moment with accredited learning for industry. So some really interesting things going on there as well. We have a new scheme which is launching this summer, which is an incubator programme. So we're hoping to use the Epic Game Centre in its downtime to bring in initially Flix Interactive, a small studio from near Birmingham. And what we're going to do is try and find a small pot of money to be able to pay students a stipend to work on their product during the summer months, so that they get 3 to 4 months worth of work experience out of working on that title. So that it means that they're also integrating back into the network of Unreal Engine licensees that we can try and draw upon. So hopefully if that works, we can roll that out and do that with some other people that might be interested in integrating that with us. So that should be quite fun as well. We've also had some really good success stories with regards to what our students are doing with Unreal after they graduate. So we've had the picture in this slide here is from a graduate called Liam Tarr, who works at the Creative Assembly, who works on Alien Isolation, and he's still doing all of his portfolio work in Unreal Engine, and he was recreating some of the art style from Isolation for his own portfolios. We have a lot of graduates that we see, even after they've graduated, that continue to use Unreal Engine to continue to do their work and to continue to use it and do exciting things with it. So that's really cool, quite encouraging as well, we think. So, our graduates have gone on to work at pretty much all these places on here, so we've had some really big success stories with some of our students going to do some really cool things, but we've had them go all over the world now, which is really nice. But yeah, so I think things are going quite well with regards to how we're integrating Unreal Engine into our awards and how we intend to continue to do that as an institution. And yeah, I think if anybody would like to have a chat to me, you can drop me an email or follow me on Twitter, or I'll have a chat to me any time today. I'd love to have to talk to you about what we're doing. That's pretty much it for me.
Thank you, James. That was beautiful. Next, we have Savannah College of Art and Design, and we have Sue-Ann Fu, the department chair, and Ari Cookson.
Hi, everyone. I'm Sue-Ann Fu, Chair of Interactive Design and Game Development at Savannah College of Art and Design. And this is my colleague, Ari Cookson, who is one of the key faculty in our game development program. He will be talking about how he incorporates Unreal 4 into many of our core classes. I know that this is a lot of text being thrown up over here, so I do not expect you to have any relations to any of the course names, but I want to explain a little bit about our curriculum. We do primarily talk about our undergraduate program today, and we'll be showing some of our undergraduate work, but it does expand to our graduate programs as well. To explain a little bit about our program actually has a sister program on the interactive side that covers educational areas that Celia had gone over earlier on. It goes into user experience design and physical computing. But I'm not going to talk about that program too much other than in relationship to our game development program for today's purposes. Now, our game development program has received a burgeoning growth within the last 2 years. In fact, we had revised our curriculum in order to accommodate the many students that are coming into our program. When we first started this about 10 years ago, our program really primarily concentrated on purely game art, but it has expanded on to other areas of concentration as well. So just to expand a little bit on that, many of our students come in and they choose 3 paths of concentration. They will be going into either game design and systems design, or going into game technical aspects or game art. Many of our students will choose 2 or 3 just to be able to complement their skill sets. On top of that, our program on the sister side also teaches all of our students. We make it required that they are taking programming classes as well as they come in, so they can pair up their educational experiences on both technical elements as well as the artistic elements. What you're seeing here is our core program classes that utilize Unreal UE4. And we have, throughout all of our campuses, about 10 faculty that are dedicated to teaching this teaching curriculum. So the names that you see on the slide right now is just purely dedicated to our Savannah campus, and most of the examples that we'll be showing today will really be from our Savannah campus. Just to give context, we go by the quarter system, which is only about 10 weeks. So all of the projects that you're going to see today is completed within 10 weeks or less, maybe with the exception of one that Ari will explain at that time. So to keep on these elements, what I'm going to do is turn it over and have Ari explain a little bit of our classes and what the concentrations are. I will come back at the end of the program for SCAD to actually talk a little bit about how we are taking UE4 to other areas of application as well. So at this moment, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Ari Cookson.
Hello, everyone. So I've been teaching at SCAD since, well, for about 15 years, since 2002. We've been utilizing Unreal Engine technology since that time. So we started with Unreal Tournament 2004, the modding tool. And so we've been sort of building classes around that for a while. I'll kind of just run through each of these things a little bit. So all of these are the classes that we actually use Unreal Engine technology in. The 3 classes that I have labeled in red, those are our studio classes. Students can choose whatever technology is appropriate for their group projects at that point. But we utilize the engine in all the other courses. So with that said, the first class I'll talk about is 130, Digital Design Aesthetics. So this is a freshman year class. They're typically taking this class towards the end of their freshman year, maybe the beginning of their sophomore year. To give a sort of background, our students, when they come in, some of them have never used a game engine at all, ever, right? They are artists. They are artists who want to work in the game industry. Other students we have walk into the program and they've been programming and making their own games since they were probably about 2 years old. So we have a pretty wide spectrum. So really today what I'm going to do is try to focus sort of on some of the assignments we give and how we kind of deal with that. So in this class, we typically have 2 kind of assignments. The first assignment is just simply an introduction, modeling, UVing, and importing your stuff into the engine. For some of them, it's the first time they've ever done that. And then we have a set dressing assignment. And in this, we use existing assets. So this is actually from UDK, not UV4, but students are given the existing assets that Epic has provided, and we focus on concepts of set dressing. What this allows them to do is to think about what is good set dressing, how to place assets. It allows them to learn the interface without sort of pushing complexity in what they want to do. I don't know about anybody else, but our students typically want to come in and do the next Destiny or the next World of Warcraft, and they've never even made Pac-Man. So kind of stepping them back and sort of stair-stepping them in their understanding of the technology and the interfaces that they're going to be using. So as you can see, these are old UDK. I'll be showing some UV4 in a second. So finally, then we have our core principles of game art class. And in this is where they say, okay, we've modeled, UV'd, and brought in one object. It wasn't very good. Now they take this class and they focus on going through and making hero assets, working on sort of, not just learning the pipeline, but worrying about the aesthetics of it. And so I just have one example. This currently is actually done in Maya, obviously, and then they bring that into the engine itself. Then we finally get into our core principles of game tech. And so this is a scripting class, a blueprint scripting class specifically. We do not worry about art in this class. We don't worry about aesthetics. We worry about scripting gameplay elements. And so we start off with things like just using Matinee, doing cinematics. So this is an example. This is all done with primitive shapes and simple lighting. So it's a very simple, just sort of exercise in using the cinematic tools in Unreal Engine. What we also do in this class is, basically worry about level design concepts. So they start off with sort of a matinee assignment, a simple cinematic, and then we go into really using UMG now, which we've started to do in the last year, doing simple interface work, and then building blueprints using construction scripts in the blueprint environment, setting up assets that other artists can utilize and modify, and then finally ending up with building an encounter. So this is sort of just an example of what sort of the requirement for blocking out an encounter would look like. And then this is an example of one student did this in 5 weeks, basically. This was last year, last spring quarter. So again, we're not worried about art in here as much as just can they script pickups, can they script objects that you can interact with. So they start off with one of the existing templates and then add their own elements to it. I'm not going to play this whole video, but just giving you a general idea of kind of what they walk out with. So then finally we get into what is 336 are applied principles of game art, and this is really focusing on environment design. And so in this they are modeling everything, texturing, UVing, importing, and set dressing everything at this point. So this is all 100% student content. And so these are just from this quarter. These are still shots. The students are still working on these. These are kind of their first passes, really. And then we get into 366 applied principles of game tech. And so this is really focusing on game for tech artists. And so in this class, we are concerned with teaching them material editor, taking more than just making a material and putting on an object, but actually adding interaction to it, and dealing with particles. So this particular example is done in UDK. We're running this for the first time this quarter with UE4. So we're really excited to see, since even with UDK, we were getting really nice results with the assignments. So just to give you an example, what they have to do is they have to model two versions, or excuse me, create two shaders of sort of a beginning and an end, and then animate between those two things. The star in the corner is world position offset, vertex driven. One. So just another example of that. A couple more. I won't make you watch them. I'm running out of time. So, so just some other examples from that class. So let me get to this. This is a Studio One class. We actually saw a screenshot earlier that they showed. So this is where, at this point, they've gone through all those base courses. In Studio One, the student gets to focus on, whatever their discipline is. So if they're scripting, if they're design, they use this class to actually work in that area. And so I'll play this, and I'll do one more presentation, one more thing, and I'll So that's just another example of what a student does in a Studio One project. And then finally we get into our Studio 2 and Post, and this is group project based. These classes are run using agile production methodology. Each student takes on a role. They come up with an idea and implement it. And so here's just a couple of examples. So right now this is happening, this is done in the last 6 weeks. This is a 4-player game, very much like Bomberman. Just to give you an idea. About that is it's done in 4 weeks. There's more to watch, obviously, but it is something that I don't think previously we would have been able to do that quickly. And so using the new technology, everything that they've done with the help files, the documentation, blueprint, all those things have allowed our students suddenly their productivity has increased tremendously, as well as quality. So this is just another example of a studio project. And then just one final one. Did you have one more thing you wanted to say?
I was just going to
Okay. All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
So that was a culmination, except for the last few projects, they are collaborative projects, but the earliest ones that you've seen were individual student projects. What has been really exciting with our program right now is with UE4, we've been able to push the possibilities of collaborating with the other departments at our school, including possibilities of working with the visual effects department. I have gotten many requests of how they want to explore UE4 for possibilities of working with real-time PBR and being able to explore all the possibilities. In addition, we are also working on projects with interactive visualization applications. So we're working on building possibilities of utilizing the Unreal Engine in more visualization possibilities for interior design and creating interactive mobile apps to be able to have that full immersive experience and exploration element brought in to this environment. What we did not go over as a last note is that we also do have 2 other degree programs at the graduate level, a 2-year program on the MFA and 1 year on MA. Those are more self-driven experimentations rather than the collaboration and professional practices that you've seen over here. We will be able to answer more questions later on for the roundup. So I hope you've enjoyed seeing what we've shown, and thank you very much.
Great stuff. Great, awesome. Next, we're going to bring up Jim Campbell, invite him to come up from Ringling College of Art and Design.
Great, thank you. I'm going to kind of talk like an auctioneer to get through all of these slides inside the time requirements, so I apologize in advance for that. I'm going to try to time myself right here as well. Ringling College of Art and Design. I'm Jim Campbell. I've taught at Ringling for, this is my 20th year there. I can't believe it. It is not clown school or associated with the circus, other than in 1931, John Ringling, he was one of the Ringling brothers, gave the initial donation of money that started the school, and we kind of went on from there. So, of the 11 majors that we have, one of them is game art. It is inside the computer animation department, which is also my group. And our purpose is to create people that are visual artists. So our focus is visual art. We do have some game design courses, and the game design courses are primarily in there to really teach them to be better artists. Understanding game design, you can understand better how to have your art speak to that design. With that said, many of the students go on to incorporate lots of game design fundamentals into their work, and they actually become quite adept at it. This is kind of like a short list of the primary software tools. There are also a number of smaller satellite programs that we're using. UE4 is the only game engine that we use. We intentionally don't offer options because we feel like by limiting the scope of that, we can go more in depth with all of those items, actually. We do have a lot. If you look at the per capita, there are only 1,200 students on the entire campus, so it's a relatively small school. And in our department, there are about 400 students, and of those 400, I'm going to say about 170 of them or so are game art majors. And so they have a lot of computing horsepower when it gets to be swarm time. This is a 4-year BFA program. We currently don't offer graduate programs. Those will be offered in the hopefully near future. If you kind of break down the credits, though, for the BFA, 66 of those are studio art, and of those, 39 of those credits utilize UE4 in the course. So a very large percentage. It is a central focus for what we're doing. So they actually have 3 years of their 4 years using Unreal. You can see freshman year, it's all, as you would expect, traditional art items. Sophomore, junior, senior year breaks down like this. I'm going to click through a bunch of these, and then we're going to look at, we'll just skip that one. It takes too long. No, it's nice. Look, it's already been 3 minutes. It's nice knowing you. Okay, so sophomore year, they kind of do their first introduction to Unreal. We're sort of doing this thing where we start them out in sections of students. We have no more than 15 per class, so it's manageable to have high quality in there. They start out doing modular kits as a class, and then everyone constructs their own thing out of those modules. And by doing that, they're learning the interface, they're learning the basics of things. They're able to kind of kit bash stuff together very quickly and make some interesting looking things. This is a first time experience here on screen. So that gets them into the level editor, gets them into the material editor. They're using Swarm, they're doing lighting. They work with Matinee and Blueprint. So they get all the basics together. It's like a foundation kind of cornerstone thing. Meanwhile, in their game design class, the first game design class is all board games and just the structure of it, as you would expect. Game design class, they actually create a racing game and have a lot of fun with that. They have to model a car. They have to model a character for the car. I don't know, that appears to be Queen Elizabeth in a TV set on I don't know. Anyway, so the character has to go with the car and so on, and so they're able to do that. We have one programming course. Remember, they're not just artists, they're artists, and so programming is scary to them. I need them to lose their fear of code, and so we do this in a visual programming class where it's all in Blueprint, and it's amazing what they can do. They can actually, even with Alan Willard, they can jump on the Twitch thing and they can follow all of this stuff and understand it and do it. So as artists, we're becoming very able to build in a lot of interactivity of what we're doing. We're just like right on the cusp of being able to make complete games using artists only. Junior projects kind of break down like this. There's essentially they're doing exterior spaces, worlds, environments, and they're doing interior spaces as well. And in the process of doing that, with each assignment, we just keep kind of like amping up the complexity of what they're doing. There's an example. All this is hand model. There's no speed tree in any of our stuff. We have it. We just don't really use that. So they're doing exteriors. They're doing a lot of, and some are realistic. Some obviously not realistic. So they make stylistic choices. These are juniors at this level. And kind of basic assignments. But if you kind of break these things down to the kit level, it makes a lot of sense. They're learning how to be very efficient with what they're doing. We're using ZBrush to do this. They rig these characters. They bring them into UE4, and we don't have a dedicated motion capture studio, but we do have the ability to use. We're using Mixamo, and then we can just kind of use animation from there, copying and pasting. The senior thesis project, they basically they're building a trailer. Because they're not programmers, they can't build complete games as I would define them anyway. And so they're building a trailer that indicates gameplay, it's immersive into a world, and in any of these that you see, you'll be able to drop in, run around, and have a large time. This is still from a current senior work in progress. All these things that you're seeing, this is all 2015 work, so we're on a semester system, so all this stuff basically came from last semester, sophomore, junior, senior. This is another senior image from a senior level, so it's, it's totally possible to run in all around through here. The smoke moves, you can go in the buildings, the doors open, etc. So, but I want to show a reel because that's really the best way to kind of see how we're utilizing UV4. These are some of the places that the graduates are working, and this is perfect. I did it. You raised your hand. You just bid on something. All right, so let's hop over and do this. Do the movie thing because that's what it's all about. So anyway, can we knock off some of the overhead lights or anything so that the blacks aren't gray? Because if you're an art person, it's really sort of annoying. You can do it. You can do it. That's really somebody. We got a tech artist here. We got a programmer. We got a squirt gun with cold water. That also works. Is that it? Here we go. Sound system. All right. Okay. Well, we'll do it anyway. I understand. That looks so washed out. Okay, so that's sophomore, junior, senior stuff, mostly from I'm out of time. Thank you.
Awesome. I'd like to invite up our last auctioneer, Elizabeth Stringer from the Guildhall at SMU.
I'm Elizabeth Stringer. I'm Deputy Director of Academics at Guildhall at Southern Methodist University. And we are more of a work in progress than all of the other presentations. We just started teaching Unreal 4 in January. And in fact, instead of being at my class right now, I'm here with you guys. And they're turning in final projects on Friday. But we've been using Unreal technology since the inception of our school. So who are we? We are a 2-year full-time master's program for digital game development with 4 specializations. You can choose to learn art, level design, programming, or production. We offer a Master's of Interactive Technology degree, which is a terminal degree. What do we do? Well, we build games. I selected a photograph of one of our project studios, the Yellow Project Studio, where we put our students in teams to work cross-disciplinary art, level design, production, and programming. And how do we build games? How do we do it? Through our faculty leadership. We have full-time and adjunct faculty that are all industry game professionals, 10 full-time and 15 adjunct faculty. And we put them on teams to build games. They build cross-disciplinary teams. Over the course of 2 years, they build 3 games. How do we make the technology work at Guildhall as a master's program? We have a technology committee run by the faculty, represented by each one of the specializations. And we have a twice-a-year meeting in which we review all the new technologies and we vote based on what's best for the students. And they actually, upon entering Guildhall, purchase a technology package with their student fees. So that kind of takes care of all the technology needs for them, all their hardware and software they pay for on day one. That ensures that we have everything we need to teach our classes. We meet as a committee in October and April, and we do that specifically based on enrollment. We enroll twice a year, and so we want to give the faculty time to actually integrate new technology into the curriculum before they have to teach it. We have both specialization and core faculty. Specialization in art, programming, design, and production teach the necessary skills with the technology, and then they come together as a group and they learn to build games as teams. So what's the criteria for inclusion in our technology package? Well, we always look at the currency of the technology, the adoption rate by the industry to make sure that they'll have portfolio pieces and skills that they can translate into a job. We look for games that have been released on that editor and their assets to be used for our students to build games with in some of their specialization classes. And we expect that the engine itself will be updated and stay current. If we invest the time in our faculty learning to teach it, we would like to be able to use that technology for more than just one set of classes. One of the biggest factors for us, honestly, is access to documentation. Because we have to turn around our technology so frequently to stay current, if there is not an abundance of technology, sample projects, source code, all of those things are absolutely vital to being able to teach our students the technology they need in order to get a job. And then also, from an industry perspective, we use so many industry adjuncts that are local to our development community that we need them to be able to be working in the technology as well. So game engines in our courses. We have been using Unreal since the inception 11 years ago of the Guildhall. We started teaching multiplayer in Unreal Tournament, and in fact have been teaching UT3 for multiplayer in level design for 11 years. We just in January switched to Unreal 4 for multiplayer Unreal Tournament. We've also been using UDK. It's been used in our team game project since cohort 9. We have currently enrolled cohort 24, so it's been in our curriculum for a very long time. As our current faculty mentioned, Unreal 4 is state-of-the-art technology. They compare it to a Ferrari. And if you give your teenager a Ferrari to drive, they're probably going to get in trouble. So we have to work with Epic, we have to work with our faculty, and we have to work with our students to keep them in scope and keep them in check. UE4 was widely used and respected by the industry, so it was pretty straightforward for us, and then the support is completely unparalleled. So how do we teach the technology? Well, as faculty, we prepare instructional materials, sample projects, and sample assets. Though a lot does come with Unreal 4, we have curriculum that's been defined, and so we have objectives we need to meet, so we need to make sure that the samples that we have are created specifically for our classes. And so all that material prepared to complete a project, we actually do it ourselves first. Make sure that we can pace ourselves. We have 8-week modules at the Guildhall, so everything has to fit within an 8-week module, and we iterate our materials until we're able to make it fit in 8 weeks. And then everything goes live. Live class, live tutorials. We record our classes, we edit those recordings, we augment those recordings, and then we redistribute it immediately to our classes. So when they get home at night, they can download from Blackboard what it is they just learned today as they were going through and doing their homework. We also have our own internal faculty and student maintained wiki. We can contribute tutorials, videos, all of that as a population at SMU, internal for use. And then Perforce is what we use to organize all of our projects that we do at Guildhall, so all the students have access to past projects through their Perforce. Our courses, where do we use them? Specialization. Art, we teach the tech in our minors. Level design, we teach it in our minors and in our majors. And programmers, they get supplemental homework. They're building their own custom engines in C++, and so that specialization skill applies directly to Unreal 4, but it's not specifically in the software development curriculum. And then our general courses, game design 1, 2, and 3, team game production 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. What do we teach in terms of using Unreal 4? We teach multiplayer design with it. We teach single player design with it, narrative design, campaign design, puzzle design, open world design, and then all the technical skills per each specialization. We also use it, again, in our core classes. So they learn development methodologies, Agile, Scrum. They learn the pipeline for Unreal 4. They have to schedule a scope and figure out all the dependencies, work at a team, iterate, user experience, user research, and we teach them to finish. It's a beautiful thing. Final exams, we're done. We ship that game. What are the issues? That's one of the things that Lewis asked me to cover in adopting new curriculum, new technology for our curriculum. And I used an example from rapid development of our code and fix lovely diagram. But we expect them. We planned for them. I give my faculty 2 months prior to adoption to iterate on the curriculum so that they can build the materials in. They're doing this while they're still teaching full-time, so it is at a resource cost. There are other things they could be doing, but this is how we choose to spend our time because technology is central. We also use our own expertise as game developers. I think the minimum number of years is 15 that our faculty had been working in the industry before they came in to teach. So we build our own workarounds, we build our own sample projects, we build our own examples. And then as we go through, right now we're right in the middle of our very first Unreal 4 game, Capture the Flag. And we're dealing with some network issues right now. But because we've taught the class before, we've taught the class for 11 years, we can scope and change the project in real time to still meet those learning objectives. So we limit AI, we limit animation for any issues that we come up with. And then there's the partnership with Epic. We've been working with Epic since the school's inception. They are founders of our school, and they've served the role of skill master. So having that working relationship with Epic has allowed us to reach out and ask for help when we need it, ask when things are going to be available so that we can keep our students progressing in all of their work. So what we'd like to do next, we're hoping to share what we do with everybody, not just with what we do internally. So build a repository of student assets to be used for Guildhall projects. We're working with other university schools on projects, and then we're building curriculum for camp, high school, and middle school, all to be shared for free with other schools, so we can use Unreal 4 in education in other areas. And with that, I'm going to wrap up on time for you guys. You guys can go ahead and check out our YouTube channel if you want to check out all of our UDK trailers from all the games we've released in UDK. We will have our Unreal 4 trailers up in May when we finish our first round of Unreal 4 games. at Guildhall, as well as we are here in a career center in the booth. If you want to just walk in the door, go to the left. We're the first booth on the left. You can come check out. We have 3 games that we are playing for you there. And then come check us out at the Intel Showcase. We're showcasing one of our capstone projects on Wednesday? Wednesday afternoon?
Thursday.
Thursday afternoon. Thank you. Okay. Done. Time.
So it's 11. We went a little bit long, but I think we still have some time for us to just have some time to talk to these fantastic people. And I would hope that you all have generated some things you wanted to talk about. So maybe we can pull these chairs just a little bit forward. And would you all like to talk about some of the things that we brought up here, both with the developers from Epic Games and from the educators that have presented? Why don't we just bring it up? If anyone has some questions for the presenters or the developers? Yes.
Go for it. We're recording some.
Yes. We've got some mics that we're going to pass around.
Hi. So I teach at a community college, and I'm also interested in working with high schools and things like that. I have a bunch of questions, but I'll show you. First of all, for me, right now, Unreal is, it's very, obviously, like, to me, it's the choice for graphic stuff. But are there any plans for trying to kind of lean it down over time, like, optimizing it and things like that, so that it's a little bit easier for people, a little more accessible for people that don't have super high-end computers and things like that. So, for me, even, we have our computer lab for teaching our stuff where everything runs great, but then we have the open lab where it's difficult. Kind of the default settings for setting everything to the lowest is that doesn't disable post-process effects and things like that, so then I have to tell you to go in and disable those individually. So are there any plans for kind of addressing those types of issues?
So, not that I'm particularly aware of, it is a next-gen engine. It sounds like you're on the right path by lowering the render quality and those sorts of things. Now, depending on what you're trying to do, I have a very old machine at my house that I often test out on. And the thing is 8 years old, and I am able to get in there and actually build things. I can use the blueprint graph editor and all that, and create logic and what have you. So, hopefully your machines aren't not far in a setback. So, yeah, that's how I respond to that.
Barn, you see that? Barn's got some good insight for us.
So one of the things that has been a push recently is trying to make it more accessible. So when you start a new project, you could actually set your scalability settings so that, do you want something that's more scalable versus the rolling when you're running this? And so when you create your project, you can do that. You can select your starter content based on those options, that kind of thing.
Yeah, how will
To couple with what he's saying, I actually teach a high school graphic design class and a high school AP computer science class. We don't have the time to devote 4 years that it would take to use this incredibly neat tool. Any kind of guidance you have of how I could approach 2 semesters of graphic design or part of a comp sci class to be able to weave this tool in would be great. 5 years from now, my students and I might try to apply work for you. But right now, we're all pioneering. There was no program in the school. We made it at a lab. We have a comp sci program now. But this is great with Photoshop. Great with Final Cut Pro. This is a lot deeper.
Sure. I'd invite anyone to help answer these questions because I think this is for everyone. Yeah.
You can start with Mom.
Yeah, absolutely. Mark, would you like to?
Yeah, simultaneously with the 4.7 release of Unreal Engine, we released Unreal Tournament as well, which is a fully built and operational game. I mean, it's still very alpha-ish. There's still lots of functionality left to go, but it's fully playable online multiplayer game. And one of the cool things is that we also released kind of a pre-built up for Unreal Tournament editor. So something that you could, if you want to start kids in learning, how to do stuff with in computer games, maybe not by just graphics design, but you could start by kind of learning how to mod the engine and starting with the fairly simple concepts that are in modding. You could potentially adapt a course around that sort of thing. In other words, start with some of the really simple tutorials and show some of the cool lighting and particle effects and things like that, the kind of things that you would do as a modder as opposed to somebody starting completely from scratch and bringing in models. Because I would imagine, one of your other challenges would be teaching people 3D Studio Max or Maya or things like that in a short course where you want to just teach them some computer concepts. So I would look at things like blueprints. I would look at the stuff we're doing within UT modding, and I would look at maybe taking some of the samples that we put together and just building on.
Basically, I wanted to say I know what you're talking about. I teach both at college all the way down to high school level, and it's much easier at college. But what I have noticed, because I use Unreal, I've been using it since version 2, is that just depending on what your scope, you can get them to do a lot. Just even in a summer camp, you can get them to do an amazing amount of stuff in a short amount of time. And usually what I've used is, if I know I have a limited amount of time, is just what I think people are saying, is you set up pre-made now with the blueprints, but you set up pre-made assets and then start to teach them. The ones who are go-getters, they're going to learn how to modify it, and you can help them out. But just having the preset stuff go in and teaching them the basics, you'd be amazed at how much they can get done in a short amount of time without that much going on. I've had them build whole levels that have objectives in it, and they hadn't touched an engine before, and that's even at a high school level. Yeah. So it is doable, and they do put in extra time because they love doing it.
We have a club. It's my closest students, my fellow nerds, and they've already figured out how to run around with a gun very quickly, and they also figured out the node-based flow chart. We're doing Java. We don't really know C++. We're starting to get a little bit of the crossover there, just memory allocation difference and stuff. But I saw them planning the flow chart already, so I don't really know what I'm doing yet. I will know what I'm doing, but they're teaching me at the same time. It's pretty cool. So. Sure.
Just on the drop side of that, we also would just encourage the compositional elements, so that if you're teaching a graphic design class, you can bring in the idea of using set dressing to create more harmonious environments using the same basic principles for color, grading, and lighting situations. And actually, Ari teaches this class, so I'll turn it over to him.
Yeah, just the 130 class that we're talking about, we have that one assignment where we're using existing assets. Don't worry about modeling, texturing, just that exercise gets you familiar with the environment, so that when you start thinking new ideas, you're building off of it, as opposed to trying to do something really complicated right off the bat.
Do the blueprints and templates have functions built into like the windows and things so you can break stuff? You have to kind of write that in. Like if we're in one of the pre-made environments, can we go through it and start destroying?
You can open it up, you can look at it, you can.
They really like to destroy things.
Yeah. I mean, it's the best. I encourage it with my students. They get kind of talking about code, they freeze up, and it's like, just bring it out. Who cares if it breaks? Make a new project.
In the sample earlier.
The cool thing is, if somebody made a blueprint for like breakable windows, in your next course, it's already there because somebody made it, and that way you can easily build more content you can use for the next courses.
Yeah, one of the things I would say is just, thank you.
Yeah, definitely look at just compartmentalization. If you don't have a lot of time to teach something, and you want to get really deep into it, especially with Unreal Engine 4, there's a lot of ability to compartmentalize. Basically, if you have artists, you can really just focus on that art. And if you have coders or programmers, you can actually really get deep into the code and don't worry about the art. Essentially with blueprints and things like that, you can get a basic set of blueprints and just focus on one thing or the other. Don't have the artist waste the precious little time you have worrying about code. With this engine, you don't really have to worry about that cross pattern. You can just have everybody get deep into exactly what you're focusing on. So just get into that. That's what I'd say. For sure.
I had a new question. Just to add to building modular kits and using terrain like one day, I think is the best way to get started on that. What I didn't see yet, I was curious with all the educators with Epic here, is all the new augmented reality, virtual reality, Leap Motion, the plugins, stuff just rolling out. We're really excited to use that. What's been happening in the academic research sense of augmented reality readers for mobile devices, for hand input, face tracking, eye tracking, head tracking, just anything new and exciting coming around the pike?
So my second bullet point on my last page I didn't get into, but we're working with our psychology department. They created a virtual reality training simulation to reduce dating violence on campus. And they built it with us 10 years ago in some older tech with some obscure virtual reality goggle set. It looks a little Frankenstein these days. So this summer, we'll be updating it in Unreal 4 with the Oculus DK2. And we'll be spending our summer putting that into production so that SMU can then take that and have the other universities that are interested in using that on their campuses work with the trained actors and the psychologists at SMU remotely. So that is one of the things we're working on as a school. In terms of other ways to use it, our students prepare a thesis project for graduation, and several of them are using augmented reality for that particular part of the program. And those projects have been presented and usually can be seen through, again, if you go to our YouTube channel, we do have some portfolio pieces there.
From a platform standpoint, we have built-in support, especially in the latest version for Oculus Rift, for all versions. If you come to our booth, you're going to see hopefully get to see the lineups. Might be a really, really special VR demo done in Unreal Engine 4. In addition, we are working with Microsoft on HoloLens. This is not for public consumption. We are working with Magic Leap on their technology. You will see several demos made in Unreal Engine 4 on another new VR technology that was just announced this week. So we're keeping up on that stuff. The main thing that's cool about Unreal Engine 4 is as soon as we put support for something like this, and of course Leap Motion, we release support for that. But as soon as we put support into the engine, even if it's just experimental, it's in GitHub. And everything we do is, you can spy on us. We want you to, we encourage you to. You can see every little thing that we've got. As soon as developers glean that it's ready to check in so other developers can see it, and that means developers inside Epic. I'm not just talking about developers outside the world. It's there. It's whatever we put in Perforce goes into GitHub. So anything we're working on that isn't a customer secret or a third-party secret is available instantly. So a lot of times with Unreal, you can play with technology way, way earlier than you can otherwise, because we'll put support in for it as soon as we get dev kits. And our guys just love the really, really cool stuff. Like if you talk with our, I guess call them VR team, but it's not just VR, but they support every cool little neat gadget that comes along. And so that's something that's kind of our thing, has always been supporting the latest and greatest technology. The newest video cards, the coolest APIs, the best SDKs. We'll deliver that as quickly as we can, and a lot of times you can try it before it's in an official release.
Trying to merge the traditional gaming, like tabletop cards, that stuff. I'm really trying to merge it with all the traditional gaming from the old school, like RPG and table from the 80s. Anything at all mobile or augmented scans?
Actually, the Cast AR guys are playing with Unreal now. Oops, that's a kind of a tabletop augmented reality system. Lewis, what did you say?
Nick Whiting and Nick Donaldson did a demo with augmented reality and VR not that long ago. Yes.
Google.
Yes. So I mean, that stuff's been developed and prototyped, and I don't know if has that been released for public consumption.
We did a Project Tango demo that was shown at Google I/O. In fact, like if you're interested in that sort of stuff, talk to Lewis, and like we are too. So that it's quite possible that if you see something really cool that you want to play with, that our guys are in the same boat, and they may not get around to supporting it as quickly as you want, but they could also show you how to put the hooks in to support it yourself, or we could reach out to the company who makes the technology and have them also look at it. And I'm sure it's not lost on all you guys, but when Apple releases a new graphics technology, who do they ask to be on stage to show off what it can do? So, and they're not the only ones. So we like to be in with the newest technology, and a lot of times it might mean, talking with the company that makes it and helping them put support in. And I think that's how the Leap Motion thing went.
Yeah, and actually, we have a link to the Leap Motion resources in the Learn tab as well, and a download for the Oculus demo. That's the Couch Nights. So.
And there's lots of stuff on the forums where people are actually exploring that stuff and communicating back and forth. So I encourage you to go on the forums and try and explore some of that stuff and see what people are interacting with.
We teach a level design class, and we've used UDK Unreal Tournament 3 for teaching that over the years. One of the things that we struggle with is with artificial intelligence, like AI, enemy AI, or friendly AI. And I find that a lot of my time is actually taken up by trying to create the AI and not actually focusing on the level design techniques. And I'm just wondering if there's a way.
Unreal Tournament, full source code. Nobody makes better AI than Steve Polch, right? Have you played Unreal Tournament?
Not the newest one.
Well, the full source code, just like the engine, is available for Unreal Tournament. You can just rip it out and put it in your own game, and you'll see how we build AI.
Okay. Are there any behavior tree examples?
Yeah, there's a new one coming out. Ian Shadens is building one that he's going to release, and he's going to do a Twitch, right?
So we've actually got some behavior tree written documentation. There's also there's AI in both the shooter game and the strategy game samples with different implementations. So yeah, Ian is all about wanting to do some more AI samples and work, so.
It's coming.
Yeah.
It's great when people ask, because then we know what they want.
Sorry, just going back to the VR question in academia. A nice practical implementation is to try and find a company close by using the technology. We teach at UCLan, which is in the north of England, and we have Sony just down the road in Liverpool. And companies like that are really, really excited to get hold of free students and just say, okay, what can you guys do with this technology? Because I think if you just give the students an Oculus Rift and say, all right, go make something, they make something really cool. But in the short space of time, it's kind of directionless. Whereas if you get someone to come in and say, okay, we have this problem in VR, how can you address it or whatever, it's kind of like a nice live brief for the students to get engaged with and makes the technology really, really accessible, and it gives them something to focus on in a short space of time. So yeah, I was just going back to the question about VR in academia, but that's a really nice way. A lot of companies are really excited to work with students because it's nice, fresh ideas, and it's kind of like free employees for 2.5 weeks. So kind of get the best of both worlds. So I'd definitely say look out for anyone using either Leap Motion, VR, whatever in the area, and get them to come in and talk to the students, because it gets the students really excited as well.
Yes, I think we're going to lose this room in a few minutes. So one more, please.
Sorry, it's me. My other major thing is, say the bad word. With Unity.
Okay.
What? I'm sorry.
Put $5 in our charity donation jar, please.
One of the things that I use with Unity is the Answer Hub all the time, and for me, I mean, just kind of feedback from me trying to use Unreal 4 for the past couple of months has been, if it's possible, I don't know how it works, but just for the documentation people to maybe go in and answer some of the, because there's been several times that I've looked on the Answers Hub, and it's just somebody just never answered, and I don't know, like I run into a problem. And that's usually, I feel like there is very good documentation, but it's, this is how it works when it works perfectly, but I haven't found a whole lot of things about, oh, I ran into a problem, what do I do now? And so, and that's what I think normally the community is really good for filling that in, but I mean, to be honest, just like when I'm using Unity, I just type Unity gravity well or something and it will pop something up. And so, and I'm doing that with Unreal Engine 4 now, and usually those answer hub things are kind of the first things to pop up. But it's happened to me frequently that things are unanswered. So I don't know if it's possible to just have somebody trying to kind of go through as the community is building up more.
So I think that's a really good point. One of the main reasons that we have done this, right, and we've generated this effort and why this has come together. And one of the main reasons is because we really want to develop an educational community and have this community really help each other out for a couple of reasons, to help teach this tool set and to help learn this tool set. We are, and we want to remain a very personal company. We don't want to become a massive conglomerate, you know, to the best that I understand it. And so we want to really reach out to the educational community and to build a community of teachers and learners and users, really to make an effort, because, and that's one of the main reasons we went free and we want to go free, is because we want to build a community of users that we support each other in many ways. So this is a new thing. Educational Summit is us coming together and inviting the educational community to partner with us, academic partners, so that we become a unit helping to take this amazing tool set, you know, and bring it up and help everyone to learn and teach it in a better way. So we are doing absolutely everything we can. We brought you our user experience director here, who's there. These guys are working very hard to try and make this tool the easiest, not the easiest, the most functional. It's a massive, very powerful tool, right? And if you go into a professional kitchen, you can make anything you want in there, right? But you still have to harness the power of that kitchen, right? You know, and here's our documentation folks here as well. And here's a co-founder of the company. We brought them to you guys, and we really want to invite you all to work with us so that we become the answer to so many of those things, not just us, because we really need your help.
There is some Unreal Engine documentation aimed at other users of other tools. It's new.
Let's do this last one, and then I think we'll invite you all to mingle a little bit and remind you all that there's some nice shirts out back on the way out that you're welcome to wear with pride.
Sure, I just wanted to probably end this on a high note. Two things I wanted to say is, in regards to the Unreal Answers, I actually have taken a liking to that, and I've asked a lot of questions on there, and the response times on there have been pretty good. Some of my questions were answered very quickly within same day or a day later, or sometimes, you know, the weekend. Sometimes I don't get an answer until Monday. But for the most part, they give me a good, reliable answer. They even test my theory or my question, and they come back and say, oh, this didn't work for me, or oh, this did work for me, can you provide more information? And in one case, they recommended, why don't you just change your texture to grayscale instead, and solved my problem immediately. So in terms of the Unreal Answers, there's definitely a good response time on there, and they're very active there. The other thing I wanted to say in terms of blueprints, this gentleman's question earlier, and everybody's talking about blueprints. I've been working on a map for Unreal Tournament, and one of the things I did very early on was I tried to make a custom mover for the lifts, because I wanted to provide the alpha map with functional lifts for lift jumping, so players could jump off of these lifts. And I had never even opened up any of the stock maps to know that they had like a generic lift. And so I was making this blueprint from scratch, and I found out very quickly that when you don't know what you're doing, you have no idea how to use blueprints, you you get functionality problems. But then whenever I looked at Epic's generic lift, I was able to pick it apart in only like a few minutes and augment it just to my liking, change the movement from linear to auto curve or something like that, get smoother movement out of it, and I was able to change the static mesh on there, add lights, even change the lights so that they turn on and off when a player steps on the lift. So in just a very short amount of time, probably only like an hour in the blueprint, because I mean I went from knowing absolutely nothing to knowing pretty much everything there was to know about this generic lift in a very short amount of time. And it was all thanks to the fact that a lot of that was there already in the blueprint code, and it just worked out in the end for me.
Awesome, thank you very much.
Cool, and I should add, you guys are a special group to us. If you run into questions because we look at you guys as amplifiers, when we answer a question for you, hopefully that answer trickles down to all your students or all your people in your community or your group or people that you work with. And so my advice is take advantage of this guy. If you feel that you want to give him a nudge to get something answered you need answered, send him the URL for it. Let him know, right? Because that's what he's here for. He's here basically to be your slave. Could I have said it any clearer? With that, I will drop the
Thank you, Mark. With that, I want to thank you all for coming. Make sure that you make it to the booth. There's going to be a lot of really valuable information. As you could tell, this was not a very marketing-focused presentation. We really reserve that for later when you get to see some of the amazing things that we're going to share later on in the week on Wednesday when Tim Sweeney does his keynote presentation and shares some of the amazing new things that we have to share with you later in the week. Definitely thank you guys. Really appreciate your time. Thank you very much for the educators that shared today. I know that it's not easy to have classes and students that have work that are due and to get out. I know there's folks that had finals this week and next week and so on. So thank you all. And thank you all very much for coming. If you would like to meet with me later in the week, let me know. I left some cards out on the desk out there. Please reach out to me and let me know how I can help you all integrate UE4 into your curriculums and environments. And right on.